这个故事如果你听起来不累，那么你的听力水平在生活中是完全够用的。要持续提升英文，记得点击订阅按钮。我们开始吧。
The morning light spread across the water like a sheet of pale gold, and the ship moved in a slow, steady line. No strong wind pushed it, no wave tried to break it. The crew walked with ease, some even humming soft songs as they worked. Days like this were rare, and every sailor knew it. They had a name for such moments. They called it plain sailing, when the sea gave you no trouble and the journey felt almost too simple to be real. Long before modern tools, sailors trusted maps that were often wrong. Some charts showed the world as if it were flat and neat, with straight lines that promised easy travel. These lines were based on a simple idea. If the sea could be drawn in a way that made direction clear, then a ship could follow a straight path without confusion. This method became known as plain sailing, not just for the calm sea, but for the easy math behind it. No complex thinking, no deep guesswork. Just follow the line and move forward. For a time, this idea changed everything. Captains felt more in control. Crews felt less fear. A straight line on a clean map gave hope that the world could be understood, even tamed. Ships began to cross longer distances with more confidence. When the wind was kind and the sky stayed clear, it truly felt like nothing could go wrong. The phrase plain sailing slowly grew beyond maps. It became a feeling, a quiet belief that things would stay simple. But the sea has never cared about human plans. There are stories passed from one crew to another. Stories written in old logs with ink that has faded but not disappeared. One of these tells of a ship that left port under perfect conditions. The captain had one of the finest charts of his time. Every line was clear. Every mark had meaning. The crew trusted him, and he trusted the map. The first days felt almost unreal. The ship cut through the water without effort. The sails held full and strong, but never strained. At night, the stars were bright and steady, guiding the way like quiet lights in the sky. Some sailors said they had never seen such clean travel. Meals were calm. Sleep was deep. Laughter came easily. It was the kind of journey people would talk about for years. They believed they were living through a perfect example of plain sailing. Then something shifted. It began with a small change that only a few noticed. The wind grew uneven. The air felt heavier. The sea, though still mostly calm, carried a low, uneasy motion. The older sailors watched in silence. They had seen this before. They knew that the sea often hides its anger until the last moment. By nightfall, the sky had turned into a dark wall. No stars, no moon, only thick clouds that seemed to press down on the ship. Then the wind came, not as a breeze, but as a force that hit from the side without warning. The sails snapped hard, ropes pulled tight. and the ship leaned in a way that made every step a risk. The calm was gone in an instant. Waves rose fast, higher and higher, like moving hills that refused to stay still. Water crashed onto the deck, cold and heavy. Orders were shouted, but the wind tore voices apart before they could travel far. The map that once gave comfort now meant very little. The straight line they had trusted was useless against the wild push of the sea. The crew fought through the night. Hands burned from gripping wet ropes. Eyes stung from salt and wind. Some slipped and fell, only to pull themselves up again. No one spoke of easy travel anymore. This was no longer plain sailing. This was survival. Time stretched in a strange way. Minutes felt endless. Fear moved quietly from one person to another, even if no one said it out loud. The younger sailors, who once believed the journey would stay simple, began to understand something deeper. Ease is never guaranteed. Calm is never permanent. When morning finally came, the storm had passed, but the cost was clear. The ship had been pushed far from its path. Some sails were torn. Supplies were lost. The crew was silent, each person holding their own thoughts. The captain stood with the map again, but this time he did not look at it with full trust. He studied it with care, knowing it could guide, but never protect. That journey was remembered. Not for its easy start, but for the lesson it carried. Over time, the phrase plain sailing moved far beyond the sea. People began to use it in daily life. When work went well, when plans moved forward without delay, when nothing seemed to stand in the way, they called it plain sailing. It became a way to describe those rare stretches of life where everything feels smooth. But the old meaning never fully disappeared. Hidden inside the phrase is a quiet warning. It reminds us that ease is often temporary. Just like the sea, life can change without notice. A calm day can turn into a hard one before you have time to prepare. The line you thought was straight can bend. The path you trusted can fade. Think about the times when everything worked out. When effort felt light and results came fast. Those moments feel natural, almost expected. It is easy to believe they will continue. It is easy to forget how quickly they can end. Then think about the harder times. Plans break. Effort feels heavy. Progress slows down or stops. You look ahead and see no clear direction. It feels like being lost at sea, with no map that truly helps. This is where the real meaning of the story lives. Anyone can move forward when things are easy. That takes very little strength. But when the wind turns and the path disappears, continuing requires something deeper. It requires patience, clear thinking, and the will to keep going even when the result is uncertain. The sailors who survived were not the ones who only enjoyed calm seas. They were the ones who learned how to face storms without losing control. They respected the quiet days, but they never depended on them. So when life feels smooth, take it in, but stay aware. Do not assume the calm will last forever. And when life becomes difficult, remember that this is not a failure of the journey. It is part of it. The sea was never meant to stay still, and neither is life. Now think about where you stand. Are you moving through a stretch of plain sailing, where everything feels easy and clear? Or are you in the middle of rough water, trying to hold your direction? If the path is smooth, how long do you think it will stay that way? And if you are in a storm, what will keep you moving until the sky clears again?
能以非母语者的身份专注学习到现在，这本身就是很棒的进步。真诚感谢你的观看。如果你觉得本期内容实用，点赞或留言让我知道你的想法，这对我持续创作非常重要。我们下期见。